Good morning, dear students. Welcome to the online classes. Well, today we'll start with our next poem, that is Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda. Right? So let's talk about the poet first. Pablo Neruda was born on 12th July 1904 and he died on 23rd September 1973. His full name was Ricardo Alessifer Neftali Reis Basalt, and the pen name is Pablo Neruda. Right? He is a Chilean poet. He was the senator of Chile. He was awarded with the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1971. He started writing poems when he was just at the age of 13, right? So his all poems are full of easily understood images which make them no less beautiful. Here also the poet is talking about the necessity of quiet introspection. Introspection means examining on ideas, thoughts, or emotions and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. My dear students, these days the modern world is full of chaos and trouble, right? And now it is the time when we should understand about the necessity of introspection, right? So that we can have, brotherhood or mutual understanding, right? So let's see. Keeping quiet. The poem, as the name suggests, it has a deep meaning. It conveys the message of universal peace, tranquility, right? The title Keeping Quiet emphasizes the necessity of quiet introspection, as I have mentioned you, and creating a feeling of mutual understanding among human beings. It conveys Neruda's philosophy of an exotic moment of silence and inactivity, which can an antidote, which can work as an antidote to war, violence, hatred, exploitation, and turmoil. By keeping quiet, mankind can try to understand itself and stop harming itself with death and destruction. Thus, the title is really very appropriate. This is an important question as well, right? That's why I have framed the title's meaning for you. So please note it down. Well, let's start with the poem. Now we will count to 12 and we will all keep still, right? For once on the face of the earth, let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for 1 second and not move our arms so much. So, my dear students, here the poet is asking us to count up to 12, right? What does this 12 denote? Well, students, he wants to say that 12, either it is 12 number of hours in a day, or 12 months in a year, or 12 zodiac signs are there, right? That's why the poet says, just for that span of time, everybody should keep calm, right? And all should come to the introspection, right? And now we will count to 12. We stands for everyone. Everyone together, all involved, right? He says all should count 12 now, and we will be silent. We will all keep still. Still means no activity. All calm and ready to listen. No chaos. Look inwards, and introspection should be there, right? So we will all keep silent. We will be silent and motionless. Okay, he says, for once on the face of the earth means for once on the surface of the earth means one's lifespan. On the surface of earth means when we are alive on the surface of the earth, right? For one's lifespan, we should not speak in any language on the surface of the earth, right? Let's stop for a second and don't move. Let's not speak in any language. Any language, right? We are not supposed to talk in any language. Language cause barriers, right? It cause barriers. No comprehensive idea, no understanding of each other, right? When we use certain language which is not acceptable, right? So it creates barriers, right? And we don't try to understand each other. So there should be no verbal language or no sign language should be there, right? We are not supposed to move even our arms. Let's stop for 1 second. He urges us to stop for a second and don't move our arms so much, right? Here, arms, beta, it has double meaning, right? Arms is an instance of pun. In puns, duplicity of sense is created, right? Because of the unity of sound. Arm here stands for a body part as well as weaponry. Beta, arms can be taken up for arms, the body part, or the weapons as well, right? So here the poet urges, makes an urge to all of us, please don't move your arms. Whether it can be taken up for both, it can be taken up for weapons or the body part even, right? We are not supposed to move our arms, we are not supposed to use any language. And for once, for a second, he says that we should not use any language and keep calm, be silent, be motionless, right, on the surface of the earth. And let's do introspection, right? So this is what we have in this first extract. And as we have good example of pun in the arms, right? Then we have alliteration also in the very first line. Now we will count to 12. We will, right beta? So here it is the repetition of consonant sound. That's why it is a good example of alliteration, right? So I believe everything is clear to you. Now let's start the next one. So here the poet says, it would be an exotic moment. Without rush, without engines, we would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Right? So, the poet, what does he want to convey in this extract? He says, he says that uh, if you will not speak in any language and do introspection, then what will happen? Right? What will happen? It would be an exotic means enticing, unusual moment, right? And he says that it would be a very, a still period of time. It would be full of silence, right? So he is describing the beauty of that time, right? Which he recommends for his readers. He says that it would be an exotic moment in which the cosmic pace of life will halt, and so will the engines. By using the word exotic, he sensualizes this moment of inactivity for us, during which people would be freed of their rush. Rush means their competition to get from A point to point B, and will get a break from the rat race, right? Which all of our lives have been reduced to in this modern utilitarian world, right? And by referring to the world in which engines have halted, Neruda is indicating towards a reversal of the dehumanizing aftermath of industrialization and mechanization, which has made societies greedy and individuals self centric, right? So let's see word by word explanation. It would be an exotic moment. Exotic means a new kind of happiness, unusual, enticing one that one has experienced before, right? So if we want to move our arms, we would be silent, then it would be a different kind of experience full of happiness, right? Which you haven't experienced before, right? When we all are meditating, right? When we all are doing introspection, then it would be without rush, without engines, and there would be no competition. Rush, there would be no rush, there would be no hurry, there would be no competition. And without engines, engines means the machinery, there would be no movement of the machinery. We would all be together, then we would feel that we are in some sudden strangeness, right? And that is a new feeling of togetherness. Okay, we would feel that we all are together, right? We would come to feel of the togetherness, unity, belongingness, right? And then we would come definitely to a strange period of time, into a sudden strangeness means unusual, surprising world, right? So here we would all be together. We have got the selfishness out of us means, uh, earlier we were saying that I would do this. So if we take out that I, right, from that, then we would feel that we all are together. There is a brotherhood, there is a humanity, there is a mutual understanding, right? And that would come only when we do meditation, when we do introspection. That's why I ask you to do certain meditation in my earlier class, right? And I ask you to feel that kind of happiness when we do meditation. So, this is what the poet wants to say, that it will be an enticing and attractive moment when there will be no hurry, there will be no sound of machines, and we would be, in some meditation mode. Then it will be a sudden, unfamiliar, and unusual moment that we will enjoy together, right? Once all our activities and the incessant flood of interpersonal communication stops, the world will come together. This coming together of the world will be a one of a kind union, something that the world has not seen or experienced before. Right, my dear? So here we have poetic device also, that is in sudden strangeness. What do you mean by sudden strangeness? Sudden strangeness means unusual, surprising, right? So sound, it is a consonant sound repetition, so that's why it is an example of alliteration, right? I hope it is clear to all of you. Right. Let's move to next one. Yes, fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would look at his hurt hands. So, what does the poet want to convey here? My dear, fishermen, right, in the cold sea. The poet here wants to say that if we establish this kind of harmony between the tyrants and the oppressed one, the fisherman here stands for the exploitative class of people. Not only the single fisherman, actually the whole poem is full of symbols. Good example of symbolism is there. Fisherman is a symbol of exploitative class of people, and the whole stands for the oppressed one. The poet hopes that keeping quiet would bring in a rush of introspection, and in an attempt to understand oneself and the world around, right? The metaphoric hunter would become kind to his prey. That is, people will stop causing each other hurt. So, here the poet says, the fisherman in the cold sea. If all the fishermen means all the exploiters, those persons who are destroying nature, right? So if they would not harm, the whales. Whales means the oppressed one, right? Here I have written this for you. Symbolism is abundant and keeping quiet, as I have told you. It is a beautiful example of the poetic device symbolism, right? Fisherman and whale, that stands for the oppressor and oppressed. Fisherman is the oppressor, right? He is a dominator, oppress करने वाला है, and the whale, that is the oppressed one. Okay, the salt gatherers is a symbolic of humanity. If we would collect all the salt, right? So salt collectors, they are the symbolic of humanity, whereas clean clothes, they are the symbol of peace. right? So the poet says, if the fisherman who is catching fish in far off the cold seas will not harm the whales in the sea, means he won't destroy nature, right? And the man gathering salt, right? If you live by harming yourself, the stop gathering. Here, what does he want to say? Beta, uh, the man who is collecting salt, who is gathering salt, when he would stop and see the hurt hands, would look at his hurt hands and will take care of them, right? Then he would feel that what was he doing? You must have seen it. The mothers, when they are in the kitchen, they forget about themselves, right? If they had the finger is cut just because of knife, they forget at the time of working. But when they sit, then they find it itching kind of or ache over there, right? And then they feel that yes, of course, my finger was hurt today, right? So if he will sit and do meditation or introspect, then only he would understand that there is some harm, there is some hurt in his hands, right? So the man who is gathering salt, when he will do meditation or introspection, then only he will look at his hurt hands and will take care of them. Otherwise, he was in a habit of just collecting and collecting, right? So his hurt hands, again, it is an instance of alliteration, right? So, my dear, what does he want to convey here? He says, once the chain of introspection begins, man, represented here by the salt gatherers, will begin to reflect upon the ups and downs that he has gone through in the course of his life, along with the lessons that he has learned in the process, right? Represented here by the hurt hands, as I have given you the example of the mothers, right? Only then, when they sit in some quiet mode, then they understand that it that she had got some hurt in her hand, right? Otherwise they are in a mode of, just like machineries, they work on, right? So a man understands his up and downs or his follies or goodness only when he comes to meditation mode. So it is really important that everyone should come to this mode. Okay, I believe it is clear to you. Symbolism, and then it is the example of alliteration, right? Now see the next one. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victory with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade doing nothing. Beautiful lines. So, Pablo Neruda, what does he want to say here? Actually, the poet gives a piece of advice to the warmongers. Those here stand for, the persons who create wars, the politicians, the bureaucrats, right? The bureaucrats or the politicians or the warmongers who prepare green wars. Green wars means wars against environment, by doing deforestation, etc. They are the manufacturer nature of wars, man-made wars, right? So those persons who are creating these kinds of war, the poet wants to give an advice to them. They wage wars against the environment and they use poisonous gases in wars. They use firearms, right? And all of them must stop. He says, stop it. They must stop the business of killing, right? They must stop the business of killing. If they kill everyone, no one will survive to see their victory, right? So nobody would be there to see their victory. And when nobody is there, then what is the use of the war, right? So the poet, he is, against of all these kinds of wars. By green wars, Neruda is referring to the calculated onslaught on nature that humans have been making in the name of modernization, leading to phenomena of decadence and environmental degradation, such as global warming. We all are watching these days, right? Exercising a moment of inactivity will also bring a stop to all the ongoing warfare among nations. Neruda mocks such wars which bring victory at the cost of human lives and basic humanity. If the people engaged in warfare on and off the field can just indulge in nothingness, nothingness would be there for a bit. The soldiers can discard. He is giving an advice. Please discard, put off your blood-stained uniforms and recognize fellow soldiers on the other side of the battlefield as brothers. Poet is, I must say, he's an excellent poet, right? Raising the things. These days also it is happening. Nowadays we are here thinking about ourselves. Isn't it a time of introspection? We're realizing our follies, what we have done, right? The ups and downs, and that's why we have come to know each other. The families and the friends, they all are together. No doubt it is a time of social distancing, but I must say that it is physical distancing period of time, not social distancing should be maintained over here, right? We should be socially together but physically, away from each other. So those who prepare green wars, the poet says, the persons who are creating these environmental, wars with gas, with wars with firearms, they would understand one day that there would be no survivor to enjoy that victory. Victory with no survivors means it is an example of irony also. Irony, right? Victory is meant for the celebration, no doubt, and happiness for the people. And at the same time, when victory proceeds with no one left to enjoy it, then what would be? It would become a curse, isn't it? If no survivor is left to enjoy the happiness of victory, then what is the use of it? There would be no use of the victory, right? So he says, if nobody would be there to see, to witness your victory, then what is the use of it? And instead of it, if you would put on clean clothes means, again, it is a symbol of peace, right? He wants them to put on new clothes, that is, to adopt a new approach towards life and to realize that killing so many people is not a victory. It's not a victory to kill others, right? So the poet says, let's put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers. Brothers? Who are the brothers? Everybody is brother, right? In the shade of tree, doing nothing. Doing nothing means without any work, right? Without using any kind of, arms. And we become united as one and consider our enemy to be our brother. Then only it would be a wonderful period of time, right? In the shade, in under the tree means into the lap of the nature. If all of us, the enemies, this side of army and that side of army come together and they put off their blood stained clothes and come under the tree or come in the lap of the nature and try to find out, sorry, that everyone is same, right? Then there would be no wars. So the poet, he wants to, keep quiet the damage done by the conventional chemical and biological weapons. Green wars with gases, with fire, that can be stopped only if and when governments and nations teach themselves to keep quiet. It's an urgent need at this time also, when we are on the verge of it, right? And no doubt it's the time to introspect, try time to, examine ourselves, that where are we should you know count our ups and downs by coming to the meditation mode. I believe it is clear to you. Then he says, what I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. The poet says, here, please see, he urges his readers to not confuse the state of, inactivity with total inactivity, right? Because although they will be physically still and quiet, the mind, that will be at work, right? Silence will help us churn out poles of realization, which will bear the power to change the world, right? An absolute physical and mental stillness will be akin to death, and the poet says he wants nothing to do with it. Its purpose is to foster life through introspection and reflection, right? This dictum in favor of rest should not be confused with the eternal rest. He says, don't take, when I am saying that you should be still, right? You should be, calm. You should not move your arms. That doesn't mean that we would be in some total inactivity, right? So the poet says, when he is advising for silence, he should not be confused with total inactivity. He doesn't want us to stop our works, but to take some time and analyze the results of our deeds, right? Life is what it is about. Life is about activity, right? Life is to live on, right? It is ongoing process. It can't stop. And I want no truck with death. No truck means I don't want to, make some agreement with death, right? Don't make an association of this total inactivity with death. I'm not saying that you should be dead. I'm saying that there should be no movement of your arms, no movement of your thoughts. Just think about it that we all are together, we all are brothers, right? So the poet wants us to keep quiet, to be still, but do introspection, right? By thoughts, we should not be, quiet. Okay. So then he says, if we were not so single minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt the sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Beautiful lines. He says, but if we were not so single minded, right? We um we were not so single minded, that means narrow minded, too involved in materialistic pursuits, right? So if we remain in, materialistic pursuits and not so single minded, we are not so single minded about keeping our lives moving. It is a tragedy of the modern world where people are too busy to live, right? They are very busy. They forget about living life happily. If we see a person, he is always busy in earning and earning. If we say that you take a holiday and go over there, then he would say, no, I don't have time. When this time will come, we have to take out the time, right? So we should try to learn to give us rest, right? We should not focus on only one thing. What is that? Keeping our lives moving. Although we are busy, no doubt, but we should learn to give us rest also. And for once, could do nothing. For once, we should not do anything. For once, doing nothing can be good for us, right? Perhaps a huge silence, that huge silence of introspection, right? Meditation, that would, make us learn that we can enjoy our life, right? We should learn to give us rest also. This is important. If a machinery, it doesn't stop, while we use computers, we have to refresh it, right? Otherwise there would be some error in it, right? So same way our body should take some rest, right? So might interrupt this sadness. This sadness means man's sadness is formed by his own thoughts and actions. We become sad only by our own deeds. Nobody can make us sad, nobody can make us happy, right? We can be happy or sad only by our own thoughts or actions of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. So he says, for once doing nothing can be good for us. When we are threatening ourselves with death, then a long silence can do us good. Right? Threatening ourselves with death. This is the realization of not understanding themselves that makes them helpless and sad. That's why we have some threat of, death. Okay. Otherwise, if we have peace and we feel that we whatever we have done, that is okay, that we don't have any, threat in our mind, right? So Neruda says that by exploiting our real selves away from the crutches of all our surface desires, we can tap into a treasure trove of happiness that can only be unlocked through self realization. It's really important that we should, think about ourselves, of others as well. We should have self realization, right? Perhaps the earth can teach us as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Now I will count up to 12 and you keep quiet and I will go. Yes, the poet says mankind can learn a lesson from the earth. The earth is the best, teacher. It is a very good teacher which can teach us a good lesson, right? Life and living never stops on earth. When something appears to be dead, only one thing remains alive. And what is that? It is the earth itself. We feel that everything is, dead. But later, I'll give here example of a seed, right? If we put it inside, or if we sow it, rather I must say, if we sow it inside the earth and put some water, then it germinate into a big tree. It sprouts out into a big tree, right? And which was appearing, the seed was appearing lifeless earlier. The earth, the surface of the earth, it appears lifeless, but there is life inside it, right? When we sow some seed inside it, it gives life to it, right? So the earth is the best example to show that whichever thing appears to be dead, that is not dead. It is only one thing, and that is in it also there is some life, right? The poet asks us to take lessons of democracy from Mother Nature. During winter, life seems to stagnate as ice covers everything and sucks all traces of life, right? And what seems dead at one instant actually blossoms into life with the onset of spring. What the poet is implying here is that stillness is always succeeded by a period of rejuvenation, enjoyment, and hence we must not be scared of being in the still and keeping quiet. Just as nature has shown us, our apparent inactivity will be awarded eventual growth and prosperity. Right? So, when spring comes, right? If winter comes, can spring be far behind? No. So, that would also come, right? And our, the things which are looking, dead, they will be alive one next day, right? So the earth can teach us. What does this mean? This is an instance of personification, right? This is a good example of personification. We are taking earth as a person who can give birth, right, to a new seedling, right? And earth is given the human attribute of teaching as well. Extended metaphor. An extended metaphor can be found in the lines where perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Yet the stillness which Neruda advocates is being compared to the stillness of winter, right? Just like winter leads to rejuvenation, enjoyment, even the quietness recommended by Neruda leads to regrowth. Stillness leads to regrowth, right? So, in the concluding lines, lastly, the poet says, let's count up to 12. Again, he says, go to meditation mode, go to, introspection mode. Then you will understand the, quality of togetherness, mutual understanding among human beings. So, in the concluding lines, the poet quietly leaves the scene after initiating a process of introspection and reflection within us. Now that he has unloaded his messages onto our minds. So his work as a poet is over? Definitely. It is upon us. Definitely, it is upon us. How do we take it? Now to follow his dictum in order to lead a meaningful existence in which we can benefit both on an individual and a societal, social level, right? So I think it is clear to you, and I hope you all have enjoyed this poem and understand the worth of the poet's message. So please try to introspect, do some meditation, have some rest, and think about ups and downs of life, right? Because self-examining is really important. We should try to introspect ourselves so that there would be no wars, there would be no worries, there would be no tension at all. The modern world is having a lot of tensions just because we don't understand each other. Otherwise, everybody is same. Whether he is a Pakistani or an American or an Indian, everybody has, same blood. The God has created us same. The man has created the walls, the boundaries, right? So try to introspect. I believe then there would be no wars. Thank you. Have a nice day.